Her mate crowned her sister Luna. Then the Alpha King marked her before everyone. The crown Kendra Mercer had spent 8 months trying not to hope for settled onto her younger sister's head. For one terrible second, Blackridge Hall seemed to lose every sound except the soft click of silver against Brielle's golden hair. Kendra stood beside the final stone pillar, fingers closed around the oak leaf pendant at her throat, and watched Grant Holloway smile down at the wrong woman. Hundreds of wolves filled the hall beneath charcoal and blue banners. Candlelight moved across polished tables. Elders occupied the ceremonial benches while visiting alphas watched from raised galleries, all summoned to witness Grant's first formal act as leader of Blackridge Pack. At the center stood Brielle. The moon crown of Blackridge gleamed above her bright blue eyes. "Rise, Luna of Blackridge," Grant said. The pack erupted. Kendra did not. "Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in courage and destiny, hit like and subscribe. These stories remind us, love finds the broken." Now, back to Kendra. 8 months earlier, beneath a winter moon, something had awakened between Grant and her so violently that she had fallen to her knees in the snow. His hand had closed around her wrist. His amber-brown eyes had widened. Mate. One word. One truth, or so Kendra had believed. Even then, there had been something she never knew how to explain. Grant's presence could pull at her body until her ribs ached, yet his scent had never quieted her wolf. Other bonded women spoke of recognition as coming home. Kendra had only known longing. When she once asked Dr. Nolan Pierce whether that was normal, he had paused over her pulse a fraction too long before saying unfinished bonds affected every omega differently. She had accepted the answer. Kendra was good at accepting answers from people she trusted. Then came the waiting. Grant needed time, he said. His father was dying. The pack was unstable. The council feared an Omega Luna would invite challenges from neighboring territories. Kendra believed him because loving someone often began with giving his explanations more mercy than they deserved. She waited through winter. Then spring. She endured Marjorie Holloway's thin smiles and Grant's increasingly hurried visits. When Brielle began spending afternoons at the pack house, Kendra told herself her sister was helping prepare for the Alpha's ascension. When Grant stopped touching her in public, she called it politics. When he asked her not to speak of their bond until the Luna ceremony, she mistook secrecy for patience. Tonight, Kendra had worn her mother's oak leaf necklace and a simple gray-blue gown. Nothing extravagant. She had not expected Grant to kneel before her. She had only expected him to stop arranging his life so no one could see where she stood in it. Instead, Brielle stood beside him. Beautiful Brielle, 21 and radiant, one hand resting lightly in Grant's. The unfinished connection beneath Kendra's ribs tightened, a living thread drawn too far. Grant felt it. His shoulders stiffened for half a heartbeat. Yet he never reached for her. Marjorie did look. The former Luna sat below the dais in ash-colored silk, her pale brown gaze finding Kendra through the crowd with frightening precision. No surprise touched her face. Only warning. Stay where you are. Kendra understood without a word. Beside the royal table, a chair shifted. Alpha King Tristan Vance had arrived shortly before the ceremony with little announcement, bringing only Royal Beta Everett Shaw and 6 guards. At 32, Tristan ruled every territory north of the Grey River, and wolves treated his silence as carefully as drawn steel. Kendra had avoided looking at him. Kings belonged to treaties, distant wars, and stories told after doors were locked. Women like her learned to survive by taking up less space. "My Luna," Grant announced, lifting Brielle's hand. Another roar struck the rafters. Kendra swallowed what rose in her throat. She would not cry here. She would not give Marjorie that. She would not force Brielle to watch her break. Slowly, Kendra opened the hand around her pendant. The oak leaf had left its shape in her palm. She stepped backward, intending to disappear before anyone remembered the new Alpha had once spent an entire winter finding reasons to stand close enough to make her body ache. Then Grant finally looked at her. Their eyes met across the celebration. Guilt crossed his face. Not love. Not regret. Guilt. That hurt worse. Kendra lowered her gaze and turned toward the doors. She never saw Everett lean closer to the throne. She did not hear the royal Beta murmur, "Your Majesty?" But Tristan Vance was no longer watching the newly crowned Luna. His silver eyes followed the quiet woman leaving alone. His nostrils flared once, almost imperceptibly. Then his gaze shifted to Dr. Nolan Pierce. The healer had gone pale. Tristan rose from his chair. Kendra. Grant's voice stopped her 3 steps from the doors. Her body answered before her heart did. The unfinished connection beneath her ribs tightened, turning her halfway around with a familiar ache she had once mistaken for devotion. Kendra hated that Grant could still pull at her without touching her. The celebration thinned into silence. Faces turned in widening circles, goblets suspended near painted lips, curiosity replacing applause. Grant remained beside Brielle on the dais. Their hands were still joined beneath the moon crown. "You're leaving before the Luna blessing," he said. Not an apology. A correction. Kendra looked at him and wondered how many private promises a man could erase simply by speaking as though they had never existed. "I thought my presence might be unnecessary." A few guests exchanged glances. Marjorie Holloway rose with practiced elegance. "Kendra has always been sensitive," she said, offering the room a patient smile. Tonight has clearly overwhelmed her. There it was. Concern shaped carefully enough to hide the blade. For years, Marjorie had praised Kendra's softness whenever she wanted obedience and renamed it weakness whenever Kendra asked a question. "I'm not overwhelmed," Kendra replied. Marjorie's smile held. "Then surely you can stay and celebrate your sister." Brielle's fingers shifted inside Grant's grasp. Kendra noticed because she had spent 21 years reading her sister's smallest movements. The lift of her left shoulder before a lie, the way she bit her cheek when frightened, the restless hands that had always reached for Kendra during childhood storms. Tonight, those hands stayed with Grant. He descended 1 step. Pain flared beneath Kendra's breastbone. Her breath caught. Across the chamber, Nolan Pierce looked up so sharply his spectacles slipped down his nose. Grant stopped. His right hand flexed at his side, as if some invisible cord had tightened around his own wrist. For a heartbeat, Kendra thought he might come to her. He did not. "Blackridge needs unity tonight," Grant said. "Please don't make this harder than it needs to be." Something in Kendra settled. Not her wolf. Never that. But a quieter understanding. She had spent months protecting him from difficulty. Hidden the bond because his father was ill. Accepted separate tables because the council was watching. Smiled when Brielle was invited into meetings Kendra had been told were unsuitable for an Omega. Every sacrifice had been called temporary until temporary became the place assigned to her. "For whom?" she asked. Grant's jaw tightened. Marjorie stepped forward, but another voice crossed the hall first. A reasonable question. Tristan Vance had not raised his tone. He did not need to. The Alpha King stood beside the royal table, one hand resting against the carved back of his chair rather than reaching for the authority every wolf already knew he possessed. Everett Shaw remained behind him, gray eyes moving between Grant and Nolan. "Your Majesty," Grant said, straightening. "This is a family matter." Tristan regarded him. "You interrupted your own ceremony to prevent a woman from leaving." A pause. I assumed it had become public. A nervous murmur passed among the elders. Kendra wished he had ignored her. Pity from a king was still pity. "I apologize for disturbing the ceremony," she said. Tristan looked directly at her. His gaze did not travel over her gown or linger on the wet brightness she refused to let become tears. It rested on her face with unsettling attention. "Did you?" Kendra frowned. "Did I what, Your Majesty?" "Disturb it." Silence answered. Marjorie gave a brittle laugh. "The girl is upset because her younger sister received an honor. Sibling disappointment is hardly unusual." Tristan's eyes shifted toward Brielle. "Received from whom?" "From me." Grant answered too quickly. Nolan lowered his head. Everett saw it. He crossed the floor without haste and stopped near the healer, saying nothing. Nolan's hand disappeared into the sleeve of his robe, fingers curling around his own wrist. Everett glanced toward Tristan. A tiny nod passed between them. Kendra's unease deepened. "The Luna blessing will continue," Grant announced. Applause returned, thinner than before. Kendra turned toward the exit. Marjorie reached her first. Her manicured fingers closed around Kendra's forearm, directly above the pulse. "Leave if you must," she whispered, her pleasant expression preserved for the watching room. "But you will keep your grief private. Grant has made his choice." Kendra looked down at the hand holding her. 8 months ago, Grant had closed his fingers around her wrist and called her mate. Tonight, his mother gripped nearly the same place and told her to disappear quietly. Kendra lifted her eyes. I know. Marjorie's pressure increased. Kendra did not pull away. What I don't know, she continued, is how long Brielle has known. The fingers on her arm released at once. For the first time that evening, fear cracked Marjorie's composure. Across the hall, Brielle went pale. And from beside the royal table, Tristan Vance watched Kendra rub the red marks left around her wrist. You knew? Kendra did not raise her voice. Brielle flinched anyway. The sisters stood in the narrow passage behind Blackridge Hall, separated from the celebration by 2 oak doors and 21 years of memories Kendra suddenly did not know how to hold. Music seeped through the walls. Beyond them, guests were drinking to Brielle's future while servants prepared the Luna blessing. Kendra had followed her from the dais after seeing the color leave her face. Now Brielle kept one hand near the moon crown, not touching it, as if even she had begun to feel its weight. Kendra, I wanted to tell you. When? I don't know. Kendra's thumb found the edge of her oak leaf pendant. Before tonight. Brielle looked away. That was answer enough. How long? 3 months. Kendra stared at her. 3 months. She saw a summer afternoon in their mother's old kitchen. Brielle sitting on the counter while Kendra repaired the loose hem of her yellow dress. Grant had not visited in 9 days, and Kendra, embarrassed by her own worry, had finally whispered, "Do you think he's ashamed of me?" Brielle had climbed down. She had taken Kendra's face between both hands. Never, she'd said. No one could be. Kendra remembered believing her. You knew when I asked you about Grant. Brielle's eyes filled. I didn't know everything. You held my face and told me he wasn't ashamed of me. Please. Was that before or after he asked you to be Luna? Brielle recoiled. The movement loosened something old inside Kendra. After their mother died, Brielle had been 14 and terrified of sleeping alone. For nearly a year, Kendra had given her the side of the bed closest to the wall because Brielle said nothing bad could reach her there. Their mother had woven 2 narrow blue ribbons before her illness worsened, one for each daughter, telling them Mercer women should remember where home lived when the world pulled them apart. Kendra had believed home meant Brielle. Grant told me the bond was fading, Brielle whispered. Marjorie said sometimes the moon creates an attachment that feels real but isn't strong enough to survive. And you believed them? They said you knew. Kendra's fingers stilled against the pendant. They told you I agreed? Brielle nodded. That you didn't want to be Luna. That crowd's frightened you. Grant said you asked him to release you quietly. Each lie fit perfectly into the spaces Kendra had been trained not to enter. Grant keeping the bond secret. Marjorie discouraging her from council dinners. Brielle spending more time at the pack house. 2 stories had been built, one around each sister, and neither woman had crossed the few feet required to ask the other if they were true. Did you ever ask me? Kendra said. Brielle's tears slipped free. I was afraid. Of me. Of your answer. The honesty landed without drama. That made it worse. Brielle touched the silver above her hair. For once, people looked at me and saw someone important. Grant said I could help Blackridge. Marjorie said I was made for this. And if I told you I never agreed? Brielle's lips parted. Kendra waited. From the hall came the low strike of ceremonial drums. Brielle glanced toward the doors. Only for a second. Long enough. Kendra understood. Her sister was sorry. Her sister loved her. And Brielle still wanted the crown. Kendra reached for the blue ribbon around her wrist. Brielle's face changed immediately. Don't. Kendra untied it. Ken, please. The childhood name almost stopped her. Almost. She placed the ribbon in Brielle's palm. When Mom died, I thought keeping you safe meant never letting you feel alone. Brielle began to cry openly. You didn't fail me. No, Kendra closed her sister's fingers around the ribbon. But somewhere along the way, I taught myself that loving people meant standing where they put me. Brielle shook her head. I can fix this. Kendra looked at the moon crown. Then take it off. Silence. Brielle's hand rose halfway toward the silver circlet. The drums sounded again. Her fingers fell. Kendra felt the answer settle between them. I love you, she said. Her voice nearly broke. That is why this hurts. The oak doors opened. Marjorie stood there in ash-colored silk, irritation sharpening her pale eyes. Brielle, the blessing cannot wait. Brielle looked at Kendra, then at Marjorie, then toward the music. She wiped her cheeks, straightened her shoulders, and walked back into the hall with the ribbon trapped in her fist. Kendra remained alone until the doors closed. She turned toward the servants' exit, needing cold air in one place in Blackridge where no one expected her to become smaller. She had nearly reached the outer corridor when a child's scream cut through the music. A violent crash followed. Iron struck stone. Smoke curled beneath the hall doors. Someone shouted, "The brazier!" Then Kendra heard a small voice she knew. "Help me!" Maisie Reed screamed. Kendra did not think about Grant, Brielle, or the pain beneath her ribs. She ran back toward the fire. The heat struck Kendra before she reached the doors. Smoke rolled into the outer corridor as wolves forced their way past one another, silk sleeves catching on stone, frightened voices breaking beneath the alarm bells. Kendra pushed against them. Maisie, metal groaned somewhere inside. She entered as one of the tall iron braziers collapsed beside the eastern tables. Burning coals skipped across spilled wine and winter greenery, feeding flames along the ceremonial runner. Guests crowded the opposite wall. Near the center of the hall, 8-year-old Maisie Reed crouched beneath an overturned bench, her freckled face streaked with soot. One ankle was pinned beneath the carved frame. Fire cut her off from the room. "Mama!" Her mother fought against 2 guards trying to keep her from the burning floor. "Please, someone get my baby." Kendra searched for a path. Grant stood near the dais, directing warriors toward the fallen brazier while Brielle remained behind him. 3 men dragged a banquet table away from the spreading blaze. Another shouted for sand. Everyone was trying to save the hall. No one was reaching the child. Kendra, Grant saw her move. She tore the gray-blue cloak from her shoulders, seized a silver pitcher from the nearest table, and poured its water over the fabric. "Don't go in there," he shouted. Kendra wrapped the soaked wool around her head and left arm. Her right hand shook once. She closed it. Then she ran. Heat closed around her. A burning garland fell near her feet, scattering sparks across the hem of her gown. She stumbled against a chair, caught herself, and kept moving. The strained bond beneath her ribs pulsed with every heartbeat. Somewhere behind her, Grant called her name again. The invisible pull urged her backward. Kendra pushed forward. Maisie looked up. Last winter, Kendra had found the little Omega asleep beside the kitchen ovens while her mother worked past midnight. Maisie had woken, broken a crooked honey biscuit in half, and pressed the larger piece into Kendra's palm. "Sad people need the sweeter half," she'd said with complete 8-year-old certainty. Now those same small hands clawed at the floor. "Look at me, sweetheart." Kendra dropped beside the bench. Maisie's eyes found hers. "I can't move." "I know." Kendra coughed into the wet cloak. "I'm going to lift this. When I tell you, pull your leg." "What if you can't?" Kendra gripped the wooden frame. "Then I'll try again." She lifted. Pain tore through her chest before the bench moved an inch. Maisie screamed. Kendra's arms buckled, and the wood struck stone again. "I'm sorry." Smoke thickened overhead. Kendra repositioned her feet. Her burned lungs begged for air. "Kendra." Grant's voice came through the haze. Her body reacted to him, that old connection tightening like fingers around her wrist. For one disorienting second, she nearly turned. Maisie whimpered. Kendra looked at the child. Again, she drove upward with both arms. The bench rose. Now, Maisie dragged herself backward. The frame slipped. Kendra twisted beneath it, taking the edge against her shoulder long enough for the girl's ankle to clear. A coal struck Kendra's left forearm. White pain flashed through her. She bit down on the cry and tore the wet cloak from her own body. "Hold still." She wrapped Maisie first. The child stared at Kendra's exposed arm. "What about you?" Kendra gathered her close. "I've got you." Across the flames, Tristan Vance stopped beside Everett. His gaze moved from the warriors protecting the dais to the Omega carrying a child through smoke with one bare arm reddening from heat. "East Path," Tristan said. Everett turned. "Your Majesty?" "Clear it." Royal guards moved instantly. Everett overturned a serving table across the burning runner, smothering part of the fire beneath heavy wood. Tristan crossed the opening himself. Kendra saw a tall figure through the haze. Her knees weakened. She tightened her hold on Maisie. "Take her first," she rasped. Tristan reached them. He did not touch Kendra. He extended both hands toward the child and waited until Kendra placed Maisie into them. Only then did he turn and pass the girl to Everett. Maisie's mother collapsed around her daughter with a sob. Kendra tried to step forward. Her legs folded. Tristan caught her around the waist. Skin brushed skin above the torn edge of her sleeve. The world inside him stopped. His wolf, restless since entering Blackridge territory, went silent so abruptly Tristan forgot the fire for one heartbeat. Kendra inhaled against his black coat. Pine. Winter air. Something vast and untamed beneath disciplined stillness. Her wolf lifted its head, not strained toward him, not dragged. Listened. The bond tied to Grant pulled sharply in the opposite direction. Kendra gasped. Across the hall, Grant staggered against the dais rail. Tristan's hand opened at once. He did not release Kendra. She would have fallen, but his fingers spread against her side, loosening rather than claiming. Can you stand? He asked. Kendra tried. No. Then I am going to carry you away from the fire. Even through the smoke, she understood he was waiting. Kendra gave one small nod. Tristan lifted her. Near the eastern column, Nolan Pierce stared at them. His spectacles reflected the flames, but terror, not fire, had emptied his face. Everett followed the healer's gaze to Kendra, then to Grant gripping the rail, then back to Tristan. Your Majesty, he said quietly. Tristan breathed in once. His silver eyes narrowed. Kendra's scent carried pain, smoke, and beneath both, something that felt wrong in a way he could not yet name. He looked toward Nolan. The healer stepped backward. Healer, Tristan said. Nolan froze. Bring your records. There are no complete records to bring. Nolan Pierce's answer barely carried beyond the eastern column, but Tristan heard it. So did Grant. The Alpha King stood several feet from Kendra while royal guards smothered the last pockets of flame. She sat against the stone with her injured arm across her lap, watching Maisie disappear into her mother's embrace near the kitchens. Nolan wound clean linen around the burn. His fingers were careful. They were also trembling. Complete? Tristan asked. Nolan stopped rapping. Grant descended from the dais. Your Majesty, my healer has just survived a fire. This can wait. Tristan looked at him. Then why are you afraid of his answer? Grant's mouth tightened. Everett arrived carrying a leather medical case rescued from Nolan's chamber. He set it on a table and opened the brass clasps. Inside lay examination sheets, scent charts, and Blackridge bond forms. Pack healers document first recognition, Everett said. Shared pain. Scent response. Wolf settling. Marking complications. At the words wolf settling, Nolan closed his eyes. Kendra noticed. What? She asked. Nolan removed his spectacles. Miss Mercer, what did you see? Grant stepped forward. Kendra, you are injured. Her gaze stayed on Nolan. What did you see? The healer's shoulders lowered. 8 months ago, the morning after your recognition with Alpha Holloway, I examined you both. Kendra remembered the narrow infirmary room, snow melting from Grant's boots. Nolan pressing 2 fingers to her pulse while asking her to breathe in Grant's scent. She had tried. Her chest had tightened. Her body had leaned toward him. Her wolf had remained curled somewhere deep inside, listening to nothing. You paused, Kendra whispered. Nolan stared at her. You asked me to breathe again. Yes. 3 times. Grant's face changed. Nolan. The warning settled the question. Kendra turned to him. You knew something was wrong? Nolan answered before Grant could. I knew something was unusual. The room seemed to contract. The physical recognition was present. Shared pain developed. Alpha Holloway reacted to your distress. Nolan rubbed his spectacles with the edge of his sleeve. But your wolf did not settle into his scent. Tristan's attention sharpened. Everett stopped beside the open case. Is that required for a confirmed bond? He asked. Usually. Usually? There are variations. Nolan's voice roughened. Old bloodlines. Delayed wolf maturity. Trauma. I had seen incomplete scent integration before. So you investigated? Tristan said. Nolan said nothing. Kendra already knew. No, she whispered. The healer looked at her. Grant ordered the registration delayed until after his succession. Grant's wolf flashed behind his amber-brown eyes. My father was dying. Blackridge had border disputes. I needed stability. And my examination? Kendra asked. Grant did not answer. Nolan did. I told myself the anomaly would resolve when the bond was marked. Kendra looked down at the linen covering her arm. But it wasn't marked. No. And you kept examining me. Nolan's face folded under the memory. Twice. When I couldn't sleep. Yes. When the pain started. His voice fell. Yes. The ache beneath Kendra's ribs pulsed as though summoned by the confession. Did the anomaly resolve? Nolan shook his head. Silence spread outward. Grant moved closer. She was functioning. Tristan turned his head. Is that your measure of harm? Grant stopped. She worked. She ate. She attended pack functions. I stopped sleeping through the night, Kendra said. Grant looked at her. She touched the oak leaf at her throat. I started carrying Ginger because I felt sick whenever you left Blackridge. I asked you twice if something was wrong with me, and I told you to give it time. You knew the healer had questions. Grant's jaw flexed. Questions are not proof. Neither was your belief that I would embarrass you as Luna. Brielle flinched near the ceremonial table. The moon crown remained above her golden hair, but her hands had dropped to her sides. Tristan faced Nolan again. Was the bond entered into the Blackridge registry? No, by whose order? Nolan looked toward Grant. No one needed the words. Yet Everett opened the royal ledger and waited. Alpha Grant Holloway ordered the delay. Everett wrote. Marjorie stepped down from the dais. A temporary administrative decision during succession is not a royal concern. A healer observed an unresolved bond anomaly, Tristan said, then stopped investigating after an alpha ordered the bond hidden. His silver gaze moved to Grant. It became my concern when she collapsed in my arms. Kendra's pulse changed at the memory. Not from romance. From the unsettling absence of pain when Tristan had touched her. Nolan noticed. His eyes dropped to her throat, then flicked toward the king. Fear returned. What? Everett asked. Nolan shook his head too quickly. Nothing. Tristan's voice cooled. You have used that answer poorly tonight. Before Nolan could respond, Grant's dominance pressed into the room. Lower-ranked wolves bowed their heads. The unfinished connection seized beneath Kendra's ribs. She folded forward with a gasp. Grant recoiled as if feeling the same pull. Tristan moved between them. The pressure vanished from Kendra so abruptly, she dragged in a full breath. Nolan stared. Kendra did too. Tristan had not touched her. Grant's face drained of color. Everett slowly turned toward the healer. That, he said, was not nothing. Nolan looked at Kendra with naked regret. No, Tristan waited. Nolan swallowed. I need the original examination chart. Why? Kendra asked. The healer's gaze moved from her to Tristan. Because I may have mistaken recognition for completion. Before anyone could speak, Tristan turned to Kendra. Miss Mercer, I can suspend this inquiry until morning. Marjorie exhaled. Or you may request royal witness now. Once entered, tonight's testimony cannot be withdrawn by your alpha, his counsel, or you. Grant shook his head. Not as an alpha. As the man who had once called her maid in the snow. Kendra remembered wading through winter and spring so his life would remain uncomplicated. Then she looked at Nolan's unopened case and understood that silence had protected everyone except her. Royal witness, she said. Everett opened the ledger to a clean page. Tristan's gaze held hers. So entered. The great doors were shut. 6 royal guards took their places before them. And somewhere inside Nolan's medical case lay the first piece of a truth none of them could put back to sleep. The first chart is here. Nolan Pierce held a yellowed examination sheet beneath the nearest chandelier. The fire had left soot along one corner of the paper. Everett stood beside him with the royal ledger open, while Grant remained in the center of Blackridge Hall under the watch of 6 crown guards. Kendra sat near the eastern column, her bandaged left arm resting across her lap. Tristan had moved several feet away after the inquiry began. He had not touched her again. Somehow she noticed. Read it, Tristan said. Nolan adjusted his spectacles. Female Omega, 23. Recognition response immediate. Elevated pulse upon alpha proximity. Mirrored sternum pain recorded in both subjects. Grant lifted his chin. There. You heard him. Nolan did not look up. Wolf response absent. The words landed quietly. Grant's confidence faltered. Everett's pen stopped. Absent? Kendra asked. Nolan turned the chart so she could see the line of faded ink. Beside Wolf's settling response, he had written, none observed. Beneath it, in smaller letters, retest after marking. You never showed me that. No, why? Nolan's thumb pressed against the paper. Because I did not know what it meant. Tristan's gaze hardened. Ignorance explains uncertainty. It does not explain silence. Nolan bowed his head. No, Your Majesty. Grant stepped closer. He said there were variations. There are, Nolan replied. Which is why I should have sent the chart to a royal bond specialist. Marjorie moved from the ceremonial table. Over one irregular reading. I repeated the test twice. Kendra felt the room narrow around those words. Nolan opened another folded page. 5 months ago. Same result. A third. 3 months ago. Same result. Brielle stared at Grant. 3 months. Her hand rose toward the moon crown, then stopped short of touching it. That was when you came to me. Grant did not answer. Brielle's face changed. You already knew Kendra's bond was being questioned when you asked me to become Luna. I knew Nolan had concerns. You told me it was fading. It was unstable. No, Nolan said. Grant turned on him. The healer's hands shook, but his voice did not. Her pain increased. That is not the same as a bond fading. Kendra watched Grant. Why didn't you reject me? His jaw tightened. We've discussed this. No. Everyone else has explained you. She rose carefully. I want to hear you. Grant glanced at the elders, the royal guards, Brielle. Even now, Kendra saw him measuring the room before answering her. A formal severing would have weakened me during succession. Everett's expression sharpened. Physically, temporarily. Nolan spoke without being asked. Shared pain, disorientation, possible loss of wolf control for several weeks. Kendra's fingers curled around her pendant. So you kept me bonded. I needed time. And I carried the consequences while you prepared my sister. I never intended for you to suffer. Kendra searched his face. Once, she had loved the certainty in it. Now she saw what certainty had cost everyone around him. You intended not to suffer yourself. Grant flinched. Marjorie stepped between them. An alpha's stability protects hundreds of wolves. Grant made an imperfect choice under political pressure. Tristan's attention shifted to her. An imperfect choice is made once. His voice remained level. This was renewed every morning for 8 months. No one answered. Brielle slowly removed her hand from Grant's reach before he could take it. Kendra saw the movement. Grant did too. Panic flickered across his face. Kendra. He crossed toward her. We can still resolve this. How? Privately. The word almost made her smile. Grant reached for her uninjured wrist. His fingers closed around it. The old connection erupted. Pain tore beneath Kendra's sternum, sharper than anything before. She cried out and dropped to one knee. Grant staggered, yet his grip tightened. It's still there, he said, breathless. You feel it. Tell them. Kendra tried to pull free. Grant, tell them I'm your mate. Tristan moved. Release her. Grant's dominance flooded outward. Lower-ranked wolves bent beneath it. She is mine. Tristan seized Grant's wrist and forced his hand open. At the same instant, he caught Kendra by the shoulder before she struck the floor. Skin met skin. The pain vanished. Kendra inhaled so sharply the sound echoed. Tristan froze. His wolf surged upward. For one dangerous heartbeat, his fingers curved against Kendra's shoulder as if some ancient instinct demanded he pull her closer. Tristan released her at once. He stepped back. One pace, then another. His right hand closed into a fist at his side. Kendra stared at him. A thin line of blood appeared where his own claws pressed into his palm. Nolan looked from Tristan's hand to Kendra's face. Then he snatched the first examination chart from the table. What? Everett demanded. Nolan traced the bottom margin with one finger. I thought this notation referred to delayed scent integration. Doesn't it? Kendra asked. Nolan's breathing changed. The symbol beside it. I copied it from an older diagnostic manual because I didn't recognize the pattern. Tristan's voice lowered. What pattern? Nolan looked at the king. Fear and understanding arrived together. A bond that produces recognition without wolf rest. Grant shook his head. That means nothing. It meant nothing to me 8 months ago, Nolan whispered. His gaze moved to the space Tristan had deliberately placed between himself and Kendra. But I have seen what her wolf does in your presence. Kendra's heartbeat quickened. What does she do? Nolan answered with one word. Listens. Silence fell. Then, from somewhere deep beneath Tristan's restraint, a wolf answered hers. The answering growl did not come from Tristan's throat. It moved through the stone beneath Kendra's knees, low enough to rattle the empty goblets along the tables. Her wolf lifted its head. For 8 months, Grant's presence had pulled at Kendra's body until pain taught her to obey. This was different. Nothing dragged. Nothing tightened. Something inside her simply turned toward Tristan and became quiet enough to hear. Nolan backed toward the examination charts. The old manuals called it a bridge bond. Grant laughed once. The sound held no humor. You found a forgotten symbol on a medical chart, and now you're inventing folklore? Nolan spread the 3 sheets across the table. Immediate recognition. Mirrored pain. No wolf rest. 3 examinations, same pattern. His finger stopped beside the faded notation. A lesser compatible bond can awaken when a deeper bond remains dormant because the destined pair have never met. Kendra's hand went to her chest. Then what I felt for Grant was real, Nolan said. That is why it hurt. But real does not always mean final. Grant crossed the room. Stop talking. Everett moved between him and the healer. Grant's amber-brown eyes fixed on Kendra. You know me. Winter in the South Woods. The first pull. You fell in the snow. I remember. You called my name. I remember that too. His face softened with desperate relief. Then don't let them rewrite us. Kendra looked at him and wished memory were proof of safety. She remembered his coat around her shoulders that night, his hand closing around her wrist. Mate. She had built 8 months of hope around one word because she had wanted it to mean home. Her wolf had never agreed. Why didn't she settle? Kendra asked. Grant's expression hardened. Kendra, 3 times Grant. Why didn't my wolf settle? Because you were afraid. That's what you told yourself. That's what you are. The words escaped him before he could stop them. Brielle inhaled sharply. Kendra felt no new wound. Only an old one finally given its proper name. Grant had mistaken her quiet for fear because that version of her made his choices easier. Come here, he said. Kendra did not move. Grant's alpha power struck the chamber. Servants dropped their gazes. Brielle gripped the ceremonial table. The false connection beneath Kendra's ribs seized, yanking her 1 step forward. Pain folded her. Grant extended his hand. Your body knows me. Another pull. Kendra's heel scraped stone. Stop, she gasped. Come back to me. Tristan moved between them. His wolf surged so violently that silver swallowed his eyes. The air changed. Royal guards lowered their heads. Grant's dominance shattered beneath something older and immeasurably stronger. Kendra collapsed. Tristan caught her. His palm met the skin above her bandage. The bridge bond screamed, then broke open around a second presence. Moonlight flashed behind Kendra's eyes. Black water. Winter stars. A great dark wolf running alone across frozen ground. Powerful enough to command every creature around him and lonely enough to have made discipline his only companion. Tristan inhaled sharply. Kendra knew, with terrifying certainty, that he was seeing her too. The winter waiting. The separate tables. Her fingers around the oak leaf while she practiced becoming easier to overlook. Tristan's gaze dropped to the unmarked curve of her neck. His fangs descended. Kendra stopped breathing. His hand tightened at her waist. 1 heartbeat. 2. Tristan's wolf pressed forward with a hunger so ancient the chandeliers trembled. A red line opened across Tristan's palm as his claws cut deeper into his own skin. He released Kendra, stepped back, then another pace. His shoulders shook once. Your Majesty, Everett warned softly. I know. Tristan turned his face away from Kendra's throat. Every wolf in the hall could see what restraint cost him. Grant could too. Mark her, then, Grant spat. If she's truly yours. Tristan's head snapped toward him. She is not a prize in your argument. The words silenced the chamber. Tristan looked at Kendra again, but he did not approach. My wolf recognizes you. His voice was rough now. I believe yours recognizes me. Kendra pressed her hand against her sternum. For the first time all night, nothing hurt there. What happens now? Tristan's jaw tightened around the instinct he was still holding back. Nothing you do not choose. Grant scoffed. A royal bond awakens, and we're supposed to believe the Alpha King wants permission? Tristan ignored him. Your first bond has been used to move your body against your will. I will not use mine to finish what he began. Kendra stared at the space he kept between them. All night, hands had told her where to stand. Grant's around her wrist. Marjorie's around her forearm. Even love had arrived in her life, feeling like a pull she was expected to follow. Tristan Vance, who could force every wolf in Blackridge to kneel, stood bleeding into his own palm rather than take one step she had not invited. Protect my choice, Kendra whispered. Tristan's expression changed. With my life. Grant lunged. Everett reached for him, but the desperate Alpha twisted past. His fingers locked around Kendra's wrist and ripped her backward. The bridge bond flared with savage force. Kendra screamed. If you are truly his, Grant said, wild-eyed, then choose him without his hands on you. Tristan stood 6 feet away. His wolf raged beneath his skin. He did not move. He had given his word. Kendra looked at Grant, the man she had waited for through winter and spring. then at Brielle beneath the moon crown, tears shining on her face. Finally, she looked at Tristan. Slowly, Kendra pulled her wrist from Grant's grip. One step, pain tore through her. A second, the old bond begged her to turn back. She kept walking. Tristan's hands remained at his sides. Kendra crossed the distance alone and stopped before him. Tristan. Silver burned in his eyes. Yes. Kendra lifted her chin, exposing the unmarked curve of her neck. Grant roared behind her. She is still bound to me. Kendra never looked back. Then set me free. Tristan's fangs descended. But before he moved, the Alpha King asked one question. Tell me what you are choosing. Myself. The word was so quiet Kendra wondered if anyone beyond Tristan had heard it. He had. His silver eyes held hers. Tell me, he said. Not an order. Kendra felt the old bond pulling from behind, Grant's panic moving through it like a hooked wire beneath her ribs. Ahead of her stood an Alpha King with his fangs descended and blood drying across his palm, yet Tristan did not close the final space between them. He waited. I am choosing myself, Kendra said. Her voice carried farther this time. I am choosing not to be hidden because someone finds me inconvenient. Not to have my body used as proof of a promise another person refused to honor. Grant stepped forward. Kendra, she turned. He stopped. You asked me to choose without Tristan's hands on me. Kendra lifted both arms slightly. Tristan stood behind her, untouched. I did. Grant's face tightened. Then come back. No, one syllable. 8 months late. Grant stared at her as if he had never considered that refusal could exist without cruelty. You don't know him. That's true. Kendra looked over her shoulder at Tristan. I don't. Something almost vulnerable crossed the king's scarred face. And he doesn't know me. Her fingers found the oak leaf at her throat. But when his wolf wanted something from me, he stepped back. Grant's jaw hardened. You think restraint makes him noble? Tonight, Kendra said. I think it makes him safe enough for me to decide what comes next. Near the ceremonial table, Brielle made a broken sound. Kendra glanced toward her sister. The moon crown still rested above Brielle's golden hair. 3 hours earlier, in the narrow passage, Kendra had given her one chance. Then take it off. Brielle raised both hands. Marjorie saw the movement. Don't. Brielle froze. You will not throw away your future because your sister is emotional. The old Brielle might have looked at Kendra for rescue. This time, she looked at the crown. Slowly, she lifted it from her head. Marjorie crossed the floor. Brielle. Her daughter stepped away. You told me Kendra agreed. This is not the place. You told me the bond was dying. Lower your voice. Brielle walked to the ceremonial table. The blue Mercer ribbon was still trapped around her fingers. She placed the moon crown on the stone beside it. A small click sounded through the chamber. The same sound Kendra had heard when the silver first touched her sister's hair. I won't wear what I helped take from her, Brielle said. Kendra's throat tightened. She did not smile. Brielle did not ask her to. Grant looked from the abandoned crown to Kendra. Something desperate hardened in him. The king entered my hall and destroyed everything in one night. No, Kendra said. The truth entered your hall. Grant's dominance burst outward. The bridge bond answered with one final violent pull. Kendra doubled over. Tristan moved a single step. Stopped. Kendra. Grant extended his hand. Come back. Her body remembered him. Winter snow. Amber brown eyes. Mate. The word that had taught her to doubt every pain that followed. Her foot slid backward. Tristan's wolf pressed against the room like a storm held behind glass, but the king kept his hands open at his sides. Kendra saw the blood in his palm. He was still choosing restraint. So she chose movement. Forward. One step toward Tristan. The bridge bond burned. Another. Grant gasped as the connection stretched between them. Kendra crossed the final distance on shaking legs. Tristan did not catch her until she reached for him first. His hand closed around hers. Warm. Careful. I am choosing to find out what this bond is, Kendra said. Without secrecy. Without being pulled. Tristan searched her face. And the mark? Kendra lifted her chin. I choose it. His breathing stopped. Kendra, I need to hear you clearly. The room disappeared around her. Yes, Tristan Vance. You may mark me. Only then did he touch the back of her neck. His hand trembled once. The Alpha King lowered his mouth to the unmarked curve above her shoulder. The bite was sharp, brief, real. Kendra gasped. Moonlight burst behind her closed eyes. The bridge bond stretched toward Grant, thin as a thread drawn across winter glass. For one heartbeat, Kendra felt everything it had carried: longing, fear, obedience, the exhausting hope that if she waited quietly enough, love might become kind. Then the thread broke. Grant fell to one knee. Kendra remained standing. Warmth moved through her veins. Not dragging, not demanding, opening. Her wolf rose fully for the first time and stepped toward Tristan's with no command between them. Their heartbeats thundered out of rhythm, then slowly found the same pace. When Tristan lifted his head, a silver mark gleamed against Kendra's pale skin. Royal scent swept through Blackridge Hall. One by one, wolves bowed. Everyone saw her. Grant, Marjorie, Nolan, the elders who had applauded Brielle, the servants who had watched Kendra leave alone. Tristan did not announce that she belonged to him. He loosened his hand at her neck and asked, "Can you stand?" Kendra tested her legs. Yes. His mouth softened. Good. Everett signaled the royal guards toward Grant. Marjorie sank beside the empty ceremonial chair. Brielle remained near the moon crown, the blue ribbon held against her heart. Kendra met her sister's eyes. Neither woman looked away. Tristan offered his arm. Kendra glanced at it, then toward the great doors. "I want to walk." He lowered his arm immediately. "Then I'll walk with you." Kendra crossed Blackridge Hall on her own feet. Tristan matched her without touching her. At the doors, Brielle called, "Kendra." She paused. "I am sorry." Kendra rested her fingers over the new silver mark. "I know." She did not offer forgiveness she had not yet found. She did not offer punishment either. Then she stepped into the cold night. Beside her, Tristan adjusted his stride to hers. Kendra noticed. For once, she did not have to hurry to keep someone from leaving her behind. By dawn, the moon crown of Blackridge remained exactly where Brielle had left it. No one dared touch the silver circlet resting on the ceremonial table. Beneath it, Everett placed a narrow strip of parchment bearing the crown seal. Luna investiture suspended pending royal review. The words were simple. Their consequences were not. Grant Holloway stood near the great doors between two royal guards. Tristan had ordered no chains. "An inquiry is not a spectacle," he said when one elder demanded Grant be dragged before the pack. Alpha authority had been suspended until the Royal Council reviewed the hidden bond, the falsified omissions in Blackridge's registry, and Grant's use of dominance against Kendra under royal witness. Marjorie lost her council privileges before sunrise. Every bond record approved during her influence would be examined. Nolan Pierce surrendered his healer's seal voluntarily. He placed it beside Everett's ledger with both hands. "I should have sent your first chart to a royal specialist," he told Kendra. "I saw something I didn't understand and chose the explanation that required the least courage from me." Kendra studied the man who had wrapped her burns, monitored her pain, and still failed her when uncertainty became inconvenient. "Then when the next person tells you something feels wrong," she said, "believe that the question matters." Nolan bowed his head. "I will." It was not absolution. Kendra no longer confused kindness with erasing consequences. Grant approached after the healer left. Without the pressure of his alpha dominance, he seemed strangely ordinary. Kendra had once believed losing him would tear something permanent from her. Now the silver mark above her shoulder warmed, and the absence of pain felt almost unfamiliar. Grant glanced at it. "Does it hurt?" "No." He looked toward the abandoned moon crown. "Ours always did." "Not at first." No morning light entered through the smoke-stained windows. Grant rubbed one hand over the wrist Tristan had forced him to release. "I thought if I waited long enough, the bond would become convenient." Kendra said nothing. "I needed a Luna the council would respect. I needed my wolf stable through succession. I needed—" He stopped. A tired laugh escaped him. "Everything I say still begins with I." Kendra's fingers touched the oak leaf at her throat. "You're hearing it now. Too late. For us." Grant looked at her. The answer hurt him. She saw that. She did not take it back. "I blamed your quiet," he said. "Because if you were the problem, I didn't have to become different." There was no villain's mask left to tear away. Only a man finally standing inside the consequences of choices he had renewed for 8 months. Kendra released the pendant. "Goodbye, Grant." His eyes closed briefly. "Goodbye, Kendra." Brielle waited beyond the Blackridge gates beneath the old ash tree. She wore a plain cream dress. The blue Mercer ribbon was tied around her wrist. When Kendra approached, Brielle immediately reached for the knot. I can take it off. Kendra stopped. Brielle's hand remained there, waiting. I didn't know if I still had the right to wear it, she said. Kendra remembered their mother's bed during her final winter. Brielle, 14, curled against the wall. Kendra promising that nothing would reach her little sister while she was there. For years, Kendra had believed love meant standing between Brielle and every consequence. Keep it, she said. Brielle's breath caught. It doesn't mean everything is fixed. I know. Trust will take longer. Brielle nodded. No bargaining. No tears offered as payment. I'm going to Aunt Laurel in Westmere. Her school needs another pair of hands. A faint smile touched Kendra's mouth. Children don't care who almost wore a crown. No, Brielle wiped beneath one eye. They care who brings lunch. Kendra laughed softly. The sound surprised both of them. Brielle opened her arms, then stopped before taking another step. Kendra looked at the space between them. Last night, Grant had pulled. Marjorie had gripped. Tristan had waited. Now Brielle waited too. Kendra crossed the distance herself. Their embrace was brief and careful. Brielle pressed her face against Kendra's shoulder, away from the new mark. I love you, she whispered. I love you too. Kendra drew back. Love is where we start, not where we pretend we're finished. Brielle nodded. This time, she let Kendra leave first. Tristan waited near the northern road with Everett and the royal escort. A carriage stood nearby, but no attendant held open its door. The Northern Crown is 6 days away, Tristan said. There are guest residences in the Eastern Court. Kendra raised an eyebrow. Guest residences? 3. You counted. I rule them. I try to remain informed. She laughed again. Tristan's expression shifted, almost startled, and Kendra wondered how few people laughed in front of an Alpha King. And what happens when we arrive? She asked. You rest. Nolan's charts go to the royal bond physicians. The council hears Blackridge's case. And us. Tristan looked at her. We learn. No promise of a throne. No demand for a ceremony. Just a road long enough for 2 people to become more than what destiny had named them in a single night. Tristan extended his hand. He did not reach farther when Kendra looked at it. She placed her fingers in his. They began north on foot, while the carriage followed behind. Tristan's stride was naturally longer. After several steps, he moved half a pace ahead. Kendra felt the old instinct immediately, the urge to quicken, to adjust, to make sure she was not difficult to wait for. She almost did. Tristan glanced beside him, saw the distance, slowed. No apology, no announcement. He simply matched her pace. Kendra looked down at their joined hands, then at 2 shadows stretching side by side across the morning road. For 8 months, she had learned to walk behind love. By sunrise, love had learned to walk beside her.